Captain Cook, she calls, speaking from the door, and the man sitting in front of her groaned slightly, seeing her face in the morning. Here's your breakfast for today. I prepared the seaweed soup. I hope you like it, she says cheerfully as she entered the room, placing the box at the table. Jungkook looks at the box, neatly decorated with a note with a little heart at the side. I told you that you don't have to do this, he says, looking at her coldly, but the girl standing in front of him just shrugs, grinning as she takes the seat in front of him. Have a look at yourself. It looks like you haven't been eating properly, and you don't have to care of me, Miss Ryan. Why not? You are our captain, and you look after for everyone, so there should be one who should take care of you, isn't it? Jungkook's eyes exasperated, knowing that no matter how much he complained about it, it will deaf ear to Ryan. So he opened the lunchbox as the aroma of soup hits his nostrils, and he can tell only by the smell that it's delicious, but will never appreciate and compliment to Ryan, knowing praising will only increase her advances even more, as it's already enough she is doing for him. He had tried to make her understand that he is not interested in her, but Ryan also made it clear that she likes him and she'll approach him until he started accepting her affection for him and won't stop till he says yes, as she tried to impress him with different tactics. Soups and broths become Ryan's specialty. Seaweed soup and chicken soup, or sometimes kimchi soup. Those are the dishes Ryan loves to prepare for him in the morning and place them in his personal office. Coffee at night, soups in the morning, and new dishes for dinner every time they work, once every 3 days, 24-hour shift. Jungkook feels a little bit too pampered with Ryan's treatment, but he knows very well that the paramedic will be saddened if he tries to stop her, and everyone already know about them, so it's not a wheel. Their talk was cut short as the emergency alarm rings, catching the attention of everyone. Truck 91, Rescue 16, Ambulance 41, Gangnam, a children care caught on fire. Immediate action needed. They both left the office in hurry, getting themselves equipped. Most of the kids were already saved by the rescue team and getting treatment by paramedics for possible injuries, as Ryan and her partner Somi was busy assisting the kids until the one of teachers shouted that one kid is still missing, and Jungkook looks over to the growing flames, contacting Jimin. Do you find anyone there? We clear all the places, right? He shouted as the noise in background were too loud. We heard the cries of one kid. It's third floor. We can't reach there, Captain, as the flames are high and the stairs are already collapsed, not giving any access for us to go further. Jungkook hugs as he looks around to find solution, thinking about that the kid is still stuck in this glowing flames. He asks the teacher, Ma'am, is there a way we can access the third floor? A kid is still inside. Please, ma'am, we need to save that kid. He asks desperately, but keeping his cool, seeing the shaken woman fear attached to the teacher's face. Yeah, from the different side, there a way to climb to the third floor, but you can only access from the back of the building. Jungkook nodded and called Somi. Somi, please take care of her, he says, and immediately ran to the other side and called Jimin and other to get back, as he doesn't want any of his colleagues to get harmed. The fire is getting worse. He climbed through the metal ladder, which was burning flames, but thanks to the gloves, as he broke the glass with much force with the help of his elbow and cramped himself to get inside. He looks around the room, but suddenly a wall partition collapsed on Jungkook and he trapped inside, feeling out of breath, with the all-black smoke going in his lungs, making him feel dizzy. But as adrenaline rush hit him, with much force he helped himself out from the fallen partition, looking around with unfocused eyes. He easily spotted the girl following her loud cries, but it takes some time to extract her from the hiding spot, as the place blocked by the already fallen metal bars and big chunks. This is going to collapse soon. He needed to hurry up. Jungkook tried to remove the heavy bars, and it takes a while as trying to maneuver the girl around fallen partition, but he managed to secure the girl in his arms. He just needed to leave the place as soon as possible. Within few seconds though, parts of the wall are collapsing and Jungkook barely managed to squeeze himself out the window. He gets in earlier, securing the girl in his arms. Jungkook hands over the child to Somi once they are both away and safe, taking off his helmet with a grunt. Jungkook heard that Somi is asking if he's alright and somehow he managed to reply, giving her a thumbs up as he wanted her to focus on the younger girl first. He lied because he can feel his ribs are sore from the harsh impact of falling partition. As the adrenaline rush poured out, he can feel his whole body hurt. The sweat started to form on his forehead due to immense pain he is trying to bear, and he leaned against the rescue truck for support. Rubbing the palm over his coat to feel his ribs, he sighs knowing that they are not broken, but he needed to get it checked. He could barely able to catch breath as Ryan was in his face. She frantically unzips his coat and Jungkook wanted to stop her, but feeling no energy to do. So as he looks at the fresh tears streaming down from her eyes, and he really doesn't have any energy to say anything, and that Ryan places her cold fingers on his lips, checking everything truly. With the took you so long? She sounded angry and even thought Jungkook understand her emotions, but he had never saw her this mad. He's taken aback, breathless, as Vine withdrew her hands and glaring at him with the tears in her eyes, but the loss of contact dug his heart for some reason. The girl, she was stuck behind the partition, needed to save her. He says, breathing heavily, I was doing my job. Vine doesn't respond. Instead, she took him in her embrace carefully to not hurt him in the process, wrapping her hands around his torso. Jungkook doesn't know how to react seeing her crying on his shoulder because this is the girl he always tried to avoid at all costs. But being this close as she shows how genuine her feeling is for him, his heart beating erratically after years as he wanted to hug her back and tell her that he is okay, but his arms feel jelly as they have no strength whatsoever. I'm sorry for making you worry, he only manages to say. Ryan takes a step back slowly as she stared in his eyes, steel jaw and head high, trying to control her emotions. Seems like a whole different person as from previous being back to her professional self. Jungkook understands that she is collected and unshakable as she zips back his coat. I know you have to hang back, guide the crew and wait for police, but you better go to hospital after this. If I don't see you in an hour, I'll come back and break your ribs by myself this time. Jungkook again taken aback from the furious Ryan as she leaves him, focusing on her work to check the other kids. You are lucky, she starts as she sits beside Jungkook on the emergency room. If you got late by a few seconds, the whole structure might collapse on you. Getting crushed doesn't sound a good way to go. He tries to laugh, but his bruised ribs add up to his pain as he winces slightly. Why you are normal about dying, huh? I felt my whole body shiver at the thought. Don't you have any fear from death? She sighs heavily, tugging at her heart and throat incredibly painful from his response. She clasped her hand with him, and the soothing feeling of her soft and cold touch, nearly healing and burning Jungkook could feel everywhere in his torso. Vine is really perfect and warm-hearted person, and he thinks that he'll never fit with such person, considering about his anger issues and terrible past, whom still haunts him that till day. Vine, he calls her softly, knowing he has to do this, otherwise she won't stop, and most probably he wanted to do for his coward self. I'm sorry, but I can't return your feelings the way you wanted us to be. Jungkook observed the girl in front of him silently, trying to understand what she is thinking. Why? Why you can't love me, Jungkook? Are you in love with someone else, or I'm not your type? She asked, staring into his eyes. There's a look of hurt on her face, give a slight pinch to his heart. Jungkook never wanted her to doubt herself because of him. She's the most amazing and sincere person he met. The way she showed her feelings to him, and sometimes it can be annoying, but all it's genuine, unlike few girls he met just wanted to persuade him for his looks. He's most terrified of his past and never got over, and don't want to drag her with him because she deserves the world. I don't have any feelings for you, Ryan. I hope you understand that. He says calmly, trying to be polite, but seeing her expression, he knows that he already broke her heart. I appreciate your kind gesture, but I'm sorry. Ryan finally leaves his side of bed after a minute of quiet sobs, never coming back. Things gets more tense between them after he takes a leave from work to rest as per orders. But when he returned to work, there no longer found the usual soup on his desk, but the meal prepared by the staff which tastes bland and dull compared to Ryan's warm soup. no brewed coffee by the time, and not even joining Jungkook and Jimin for the grill, as if she'd taken his rejection seriously and now trying to not appear in front of him at all. It somehow sad on him, but he knows that's better for both of them. Seeing Ryan's tearful face used to brighten his mood, and even he low-key stare at her face when she is not paying attention to him during work or practice. But now all he sees her cold face, and he can't understand how being working in the same shift she really able to avoid him totally. Once their eyes met during a rescue session, but she immediately averted her eyes as he only stare at her during the emergency calls, as Ryan busy herself with the paramedic work and never pay attention to his direction again. If there's interaction needed, just respond it professionally or Sumi take the initiative. The firefighters just finished a grilling training session, were gathered around the table devouring the delicious fried chicken. The sound of laughter and cheerful banter filled the room. Mingi, with a mouthful of chicken, waves enthusiastically at Jungkook and Jimin as they entered the room. He waved them over, trying to speak through his food. Jimin chuckled, shaking his head. Mingi swallowed first. By the way, who brought this? He asked as he sat beside them. Before Mingi could respond, Somi answered with a smile. The little girl our captain saved last week from Daycare. She is actually the granddaughter of our chief's close friend. Her parents offer her this as a token of gratitude. Nice. Looks like we owe Jungkook more than a thank you for this, he says as he takes a bite of sizzling hot piece. Well, I'm not complaining. This is delicious. Jungkook shrugs, seeing his team enjoying the food. As he looks around the room, his attention was drawn to Ryan, who was talking gently to the little girl. She was avoiding his gazes and was deep in conversation with the child. His heart ached as he watched her, knowing she was doing it on purpose, but that's what he wanted. Yet it pained him all the same. Just as Jungkook gathered the courage to approach Ryan, the parents of the little girl entered the room conversing with the chief, and everyone stand up to greet them. Hello everyone, I would like to introduce you to the parents of cute little girl. He introduced them as he looked around the room and found Jungkook. Mr. Park, I'm glad to introduce you to Jeon Jungkook. And Jungkook, he is Mr. Park Jin-young, and his wife are Jisoo. Jungkook froze in his spot as his face hardened seeing Jisoo, and when their eyes met, Jisoo's eyes widened in shock when she saw Jungkook, but she quickly composed herself, clinging to her husband. Jimin, who knew the history between them, glanced at Jungkook with concern. They really wanted to meet you in person to say thank you for saving their daughter, he said to Jungkook, whose jaw was clenched tightly. Jin-young approached Jungkook, extending his hand. Hello Jungkook, thank you so much for saving my daughter. We're truly grateful. Jungkook stared at Jisoo, who was looking everywhere but his direction. He ignored Jin-young's hand. The tension in the room was palpable as everyone was waiting for Jungkook to take the hand. Ryan noticed the stiff atmosphere, observing Jungkook closely. Jungkook, he calls him, clearing his throat. Jungkook broke his stares from Jisoo, feeling immense anger, then shifts his attention to Jin-young. He looks at him with hatred and excuses himself, heading back to his room without saying anything to anyone, leaving everyone shocked. Ryan got up immediately as the little girl went to her mother's side. Ryan rushed inside, her heart pounding, as the loud crashing sounds from Jungkook's office. The door opened, she gasped at the sight. Papers, books, objects were thrown across the floor, the desk now clear, except for Jungkook, who stood with his back to her, his fist pounding the wall. Jungkook, she called out, her voice trembling with worry. He didn't respond, continuing to punch the wall, his knuckles already bleeding. Why her now? He screamed, his voice breaking with each punch. Ryan ran to him, trying to grab his arm to stop him. Jungkook, please stop, you're hurting yourself. He shoved her away roughly, causing her to stumble back. Terror gripped her as she saw the wild rage in his eyes. He kicked the chair, sending it crashing into the wall. Jungkook, your hand, she cried, noticing the blood dripping from his knuckles. You are bleeding. But he seemed lost in fury, oblivious to her presence. She reached out again, desperate to calm him. Stop hurting yourself, please. I can't stand seeing you like this, she pleaded, her voice breaking. Jungkook turned on her, his eyes blazing. Why can't you stay away from me for a second? Didn't I tell you to stop meddling in my life? I don't need your help, Ryan. I don't need you. Just go away. His words hit her like a physical blow and she froze, her heart aching. She could see the pain in his eyes, but his anger blinded him to her own hurt. Stop following me everywhere. That's so annoying, he yelled, his voice echoing in the chaotic room. I feel suffocated with you. Just leave. Leave me alone. Tears welled up in Ryan's eyes and she turned, running out of the office, her sobs echoing down the hallway. Just as she fled, Jimin arrived, his eyes widening in shock as he saw her crying. Ryan, he called after her, but she was already gone. He hesitated, torn between following her and checking on Junuk. As he stepped into the office, he took in the devastation, the scattered objects, the broken furniture, and Junuk standing with his back to the door, his hand bleeding and his body shaking. As he noticed Jimin's presence, he also immediately left the office. It's always the past wounds which ruin the present happiness.